Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Developing Designers. Today we'll be visiting with Rodney Bischoff, our Director of Design Process, on how field experience really improves our design. One of the things that stood out to me is how Rodney deals with conflict, because there's always conflict when it comes to translating design to actually constructing with all the various contractors. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, Rodney. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Developing Designers. I wonder if you wouldn't mind starting out with a little description of your experience.
Started in the field of architecture when I graduated. I actually started here in 2005.
Okay.
And so I worked as a student intern here at EAPC.
I remember
it. And I've pretty much been doing this ever since. So, and I've been back. I am a Boomerang employee. I came back to EAPC and been back for, 12 years now.
So fantastic. What's your current role?
I'm currently the Director of Design Process here at EAPC.
Okay.
And then also serve as a project manager.
Okay. So that jumps me right into my questions. So when you're designing, how has your field experience kind of shaped your design process?
So really what the field experience has brought is thinking through the process of how it's going to be built. So when looking at a detail and breaking it down into steps, like which discipline will be coming in what order, and then how that will actually be constructed in the field. And sometimes what it does, it causes you to evaluate the detail and I want to say simplify, but really thinking through that and making sure that the constructability is there, because the more difficult a detail is, the more expensive it is. So there's a lot of budget management that goes along with that as well.
So do you think kind of you put yourself in the mindset of the contractor? It's like, how easy is this going to be to build and that
right.
sort of thing?
Yep, exactly. And there are times. I'll throw out a rule, like a 4-inch rule. If you need to get your hand into a space, make sure you have 4 inches of space in order to do that.
Okay.
So like even things like that, you can't have things too tight, otherwise a contractor can't reach it. So want to be thinking about that again, so that it can be built and we can see it in practice.
Okay. So is there any one field lesson that you learned over your time that you wish all young designers knew about?
So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about telling all young designers to always be keeping records. Keep those notes, take a notebook everywhere you go, make sure you're recording what you see, what you talk about, what discuss, what decisions are being made. It is very important to keep those records throughout the construction process.
I think I couldn't agree more on that, because one of the things I like to focus on is, what's our QA, QC process, and educating owners. And if we take great notes and make sure the owner sees those notes and maybe in some cases signs off on those notes, there's no ambiguity later in the project. So I think that's a great lesson for sure.
And there's so much information that's being thrown at you. You're never going to remember all of it.
Exactly.
So it is important to keep those records.
And there's plenty of examples where, clients have come back and I don't remember saying that. And it's like, boy, if you can pull up the notes and say, we talked about it and you saw these notes on such and such a date. So record keeping that's probably one of the hallmarks of project management, I think. So
yes, definitely.
So when you're dealing with young designers that you're mentoring, where do you see these young designers unintentionally making things harder for the contractors?
So the part of the process for young designers is to make sure that you're coordinating your work, especially on the design document side.
Mhm.
So looking at everyone else's work as you're doing yours. So when, as an architect, you're responsible for coordination for all disciplines. So that means going through and evaluating all the other drawings and work being done as well. Especially trying to find any potential conflicts, and knowing where those may happen, that can also be addressed in the field. There will be times that some things need to be coordinated in the field. But I think it's important for young designers to make sure that they are taking a look at their own work, comparing the other disciplines, and then going to their supervisor or the architect or project manager or other quality reviewer. But that overall, what I would tell a young architect is make sure you're checking your own work first, and then going to the rest of the team.
Okay. So when you talk about contractors, can you talk a little bit about, so we've gone to, some owners have gone to construction management at risk.
Mhm.
And the benefits, they say, of that is the fact that the contractor is on board early.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me some advantages of early input from the field if a construction manager at risk is on board really early in the design process?
So there it really boils down to choosing types of systems. I'll give an example of a higher ed lab building. We initially were looking at roof joists, but the CMAR was able to tell us that joists are not readily available. It'll be a better decision to use steel, just steel beam structure instead. So for the roof structure. So that was
In that current environment.
yeah. So just at that time, joists weren't available, moved to steel beams, and so we were able to implement that early in the process rather than going down a path where we would be specifying a product that couldn't be delivered on site in a timely manner.
Okay, excellent. So when you're dealing with young designers, again, mentoring, how do you get them to think about constructability? Is it sort of taking them out on site, or is it research, or how would you tell them to think about constructability?
Yeah, in this question, as I was thinking through it, being on site and having that experience is probably the best learning environment. It's also maybe sometimes the more difficult way, but it is the way you do learn, especially when getting that direct feedback from the contractor, and seeing the types of questions that they will ask, because there are lots of questions that you may think you're being very straightforward, but when it's actually in the field, that may not be the case. So getting those questions and then working with the contractor to find a solution. And also be willing to work with the contractor to find that solution. It is a collaborative effort. It isn't intended to solely be on one party. Now, you want to maintain design intent, and you want to maintain the performance of the systems you're working with, but I think getting those questions and then thinking through that. And then also just challenging young designers, again, like you had said, like, think like a contractor. What are some of those questions that may come up? If you were to build this, if you were actually building it yourself, what are some of the steps that you would want to know? And making sure that that's coming across.
Like a proactive
Correct.
approach. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about coaching the next generation or mentoring. How would you coach young designers in dealing with conflict? Because, I mean, it's just a fact of life. When you're constructing a building, there's always conflict. You just can't get away from it. So
Right.
how would you coach that next generation?
So one of the first steps, a lot of times you'll be asked to answer a question immediately. If you do not know the answer, it is, first of all, okay to say, I don't know.
Mhm.
I will write that question down and I will follow up. So that's one of the things that I would recommend. You don't always have to have the answer immediately, even if the client or contractor is asking for an immediate answer.
Mhm.
It's better to say, I don't know. And also make sure that when you're working through a challenge, that there's a clear goal in mind.
Mhm.
Okay, so we know this detail won't work. Here's what the end result. This is what we want the end result to be. What are some steps we can take to get there? So and I've thought about that in detailing too. Like I know what I want the end result. I know what I want it to look like.
Yes.
But I may not know all the steps to get there. So that's where I'm being willing to work with a contractor, especially to solve that. And the other thing, the contractor doesn't know your intent all the time.
Right.
So it is good to share that with them. Like, why are you wanting this?
Yep. They can see your side of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it helps them understand too, okay, I see what you're going for. Here's how I think it can be solved. So make sure you're explaining the reason behind or an overarching goal. Because again, we as architects are looking at the bigger picture for the entire project and the design goals there, where they're looking at getting the work completed.
Right.
So they may not understand exactly why something's being done the way it is or designed to look the way it does.
Right.
So
I feel like it's important to hit on something you said with extra emphasis. You said something about don't feel like you have to answer a question because you can get yourself in trouble if you're you're not sure, you're kind of guessing. So it's absolutely okay to say, I'm going to get back to you on that one. But the other important thing is it's always great to give specifics, like I will get back to you on Thursday or I'll get back to you tomorrow on this regardless. So I think that's hugely important because, young designers, they don't know all the answers, but you have a team of people that you collaborate with that you can get the answers from. So I think that's really, really important. And one of the things I always do, like if you do like a pre-bid conference, I always say, I may say something during this pre-bid, but if it doesn't appear on an addendum in terms of notes, then what I said cannot be part of the construction documents. It has to be written down. So that's also an important thing to get across to young designers.
Yep.
So can you share a time where your field experience or your experience in general saved or solved or prevented a big problem?
One example that comes to mind is for a long-term care center, and this will help stress the importance of being involved in all steps of the construction administration process. But I reviewed shop drawings for it. We had a stone wall system on the exterior of the building, and I reviewed the shops, so I knew the color and the finish of the stone. What arrived and what was being constructed on site was not what was specified or what was submitted or approved in the shop drawings. It was a completely different color. So I was able to catch that right away, or at least early enough that it didn't take too much to change that out. And it did result in a little bit of time delay to get the correct stone. But that's an example of when you're involved in the entire process, like reviewing shop drawings, then you're seeing it actually being installed and you know what's supposed to be there. Whereas if someone else may not have even noticed that it wasn't the right color, because obviously the contractor also, they just started installing what arrived. And it happened in that case the stone was mislabeled from the manufacturer.
Oh, wow.
So they thought they were installing the correct, but it was not.
You saved some serious, not only money, but headaches, because if they would have installed that entire, I mean, the owner would have been, this is not the right color. What do? You tear it out, but
Right.
who ends up paying for it? There'd be a huge conflict there. So yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about the value of real world knowledge on site. So what would you say contractors respect most in a designer?
So the oftentimes I've found where they respect is the willingness to listen and to collaborate on details and circling back to sharing the intent. What is the end goal? And being willing to work with them in order to achieve that. And we as designers, we also need to know what our design priorities are, because we're going to have to be flexible. Anytime, it doesn't matter what the project is, something will change in the field that you may not have been anticipating. Ceiling heights are a perfect one. Every project has ceiling height conflicts, but knowing what is a must, but also where flexibility, and then again that listening and working as a team to realize that final design intent.
Sure. So an example I can think of is, we have a really rigorous intern program at EAPC, as you know. And I like to tell the young interns, if, let's say it's between their freshman and sophomore year, they're interning with us. I said, if you can get an internship if like they're a mechanical engineer, with a HVAC contractor or a mechanical contractor, or if it's an architect, if you can work for a general contractor, get that knowledge of how things are actually installed in the field. And I think, I think contractors respect that. I think of Anthony Corcoran, one of the partners at EAPC. He actually worked for Grants Mechanical for years before he even got his engineering degree from NDSU. And you can see it in the field when a contractor knows that you've done it, you've experienced it in the field. They're less likely to try to pull the wool over your eyes, and there's a kind of a mutual respect because you've been there, done that. So I think that would help a young designer if they actually did decide to do an internship outside the design world, but actually in the construction field. So Rodney, one of the things I try to interlace throughout this podcast is EAPC's vision and our core values and our aspirational values. And I think of commitment, which in our minds is really investing in relationships with our owners and our contractors. Can you give me sort of, not an example, but how can we best show that commitment?
So in approaching the construction phase of a project, it's really a commitment to that end goal, which is delivering the project for the client. So as a contractor and as a design team, we're both working for the client, and approaching it as a collective team to deliver the best result. And the projects that go the best are with that team approach, where it can be more difficult if it's more of a us versus them approach. So I don't recommend that. I definitely recommend working collaboratively as a team and having that commitment to that end result to deliver for the client.
Excellent. I love how you got both collaboration and commitment, which are two of our core values. So thanks so much, Rodney, for joining me on this episode of Developing Designers. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.